What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is Jason Bourne. To be completely honest, I hadn't seen any of the Bourne movies before this week. I knew the new one was hitting theaters this Friday, so I set aside some time to watch the original three films, so I at least knew what was going on in this new one. I actually really enjoyed those three films though. But anyway, let's get into my review of Jason Bourne because that's what you're here for. Okay, so Jason Bourne is an action thriller film that was directed and co-written by Paul Greengrass and is the fifth installment in the Bourne series, the fourth that includes Matt Damon in the role of Jason Bourne. Paul Greengrass also directed the second installment in the Bourne series, The Bourne Supremacy, back in 2004, as well as the third installment, The Bourne Ultimatum, in 2007. If you're unfamiliar with the Bourne series as a whole, the original three films are based on the novels of the same names by Robert Ludlum, written back in the 1980s and early 1990s. All of the films, excluding the fourth installment, The Bourne Legacy, follow Matt Damon's character Jason Bourne, a former CIA agent who remembers nothing about his past and is being hunted by the CIA for several reasons. Jason Bourne's ultimate end goal was to find out who and what he is and eventually expose the CIA in the process. Well, fast forward to 2016, where Jason Bourne has been MIA for roughly a decade and he's been hiding and supporting himself through the means of illegal fighting. He eventually finds himself in his usual role of exposing the CIA after Julia Stiles' character Nikki Parsons hacks the CIA servers and finds something interesting about Bourne and his past. Bourne is brought back into the game, and the rest of the film is spent trying to once again find out more about his past, where he comes from, and how he learned all these exceptional abilities, and expose the CIA for their wrongdoing. Okay, so this film currently sits at a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes as I'm recording this, and I have to say that I have no idea as to why. The original Bourne trilogy films all sit at an 82% or above, and this new film is not really all that far off in story, action, and overall execution. I really like this movie because it gives you more of those classic thriller and action Bourne elements that the highly praised original three films did, albeit an updated and revised model suitable for 2016 cinema. This story definitely feels like a continuation of the story of Jason Bourne, the character that we all know and love, and if you enjoyed the first three Bourne films, then I'm pretty sure you're gonna enjoy this one too. And I'm sure there's many of you out there who haven't seen the other three Bourne films, and you're probably thinking, well, I haven't seen the other three, so I won't know what's going on, so I can't see this new one. I don't particularly feel like you have to have seen the other three films to enjoy this new one, because the filmmakers do a really good job explaining things and providing brief recaps of previous events that allow new audience members to acclimate to the Bourne franchise pretty smoothly. So if you're on the fence about going to see this one because you haven't seen the other Bourne films, I'd suggest not worrying about that too much, because you can still come into this movie with no previous knowledge of Jason Bourne and still really enjoy it. Even though the last time we saw Jason Bourne was back in 2007, it doesn't feel like this story and Bourne himself are old and played out at all. Jason Bourne still kicks just as much ass as he always has, and the feats he pulls off are just as impressive, if not more so than ever. The action sequences in this movie are just absolutely crazy, and they're amazing to watch play out on screen. There's a lot of really well choreographed spectacles via car chases or protests that Bourne uses as cover, or fight scenes between Bourne and CIA agents, and so on. These scenes are shot from a technical standpoint and executed from a logistical standpoint in a way that makes you feel like you're right there in the middle of all this madness with Jason Bourne. It almost felt like a VR experience because these scenes were executed so beautifully that they felt completely 100% real and not staged whatsoever. I have no idea how they pulled off these thrilling action sequences in these ultra realistic environments, but it ultimately left me thoroughly impressed and immersed into this story. I will say though that the pacing was a little bit off for me because there's very little time to slow down and reflect on past events. What I mean by that is that this film is mostly non-stop action, and sometimes it would have been nice to cool off for a second and have our characters interact just a little bit more. If you've seen any of the previous Bourne movies, then I'll just say that there are definitely some familiar elements here. The car chases feel pretty much the same, albeit a little bit bigger with more destruction, and the fight scenes incorporate the same feel with no music and a very raw and gritty style. If you're new to the franchise, just expect some amazing and pretty unique action and overall destruction. Okay, so there's several actors in this movie, but there's really only a handful that truly make a significant impact on the story. The first and most important obviously being Matt Damon in the role of Jason Bourne. It's amazing that after almost 10 years, Matt Damon can completely jump back into the role of Jason Bourne and not miss a single beat. Because that's exactly what happened here. Matt Damon was great in this movie even though he didn't even have that many lines. I think he has like roughly 25 lines of dialogue in this movie, and that may not sound like a lot, but I never found myself saying like, Matt Damon is really not talking a lot in this movie. That really bugs me. Because most of the time he's running from the CIA and kicking ass, so he's not going to try to have a conversation with a guy he's fighting like, hey man, I just wanted to let you know you're doing a really good job. It's not personal, but I gotta kick your ass. He's either driving a getaway car or doing something action-wise that doesn't require a lot of talking, but Matt Damon still does a great job nonetheless. Julia Stiles returns back to her role of CIA agent Nikki Parsons, and she does a really good job in this movie too. She works closely with Jason Bourne this time, and it was nice to see her on the good side this time around. She really is an awesome actress, and she deserves more roles in big movies like these. So the Bourne series had two newcomers in the great Tommy Lee Jones and rising star Alicia Vikander. Tommy Lee Jones plays CIA Director Robert Dewey, and he absolutely nailed this role. On the surface, he's a mostly friendly but pretty tough and firm guy, but underneath all that, he can be pretty ruthless, and he operates mostly as his film's villain. Tommy Lee Jones is pretty much great in anything he does, and this film is no exception. The Bourne series hasn't always had a strong villain presence, but this time around it definitely does in the form of Tommy Lee Jones. So Alicia Vikander is also really great in this movie. I saw she's in Ex Machina and The Danish Girl, but I haven't seen those, so this was my first time seeing her on screen, and I was thoroughly impressed. She plays a CIA agent by the name of Heather Lee, and she showed a lot of really complex emotions on screen that even further allowed me to immerse myself into this story. Her character had a lot of depth to her, and she was maybe the second most compelling character in this entire movie, just behind Jason Bourne himself. She's also a very beautiful woman, but sadly she's dating Michael Fassbender and isn't available. Michael Fassbender is a great actor though, so it makes sense. Okay, so the dialogue in this movie was also really well written. There weren't any lines that felt unnatural or out of place at all. Like I said, Bourne doesn't talk too much, but when he does, he makes the most of it. The other characters, specifically Tommy Lee Jones, all had great lines of dialogue that were delivered in really interesting and compelling ways. One knock I have on this movie is the cinematography in certain spots. There are a handful of ugly shots that are not the greatest looking from a composition standpoint or just from a focus one. Some of the shots are a little jarring simply because of how the characters are framed or the actor is just simply out of focus. This doesn't happen too often and most people likely won't even notice, but it bothered me just a little bit. Okay, so overall I really enjoyed this movie and I'm not sure why it's getting so much hate. I thought it had really good acting and a good cast, a story that was entertaining and immersive in nature and felt true to the Bourne series, extremely impressive action sequences, and strong dialogue. I also felt the pacing was a little bit off in some moments and the cinematography was a bit jarring in certain spots. I'm gonna give this movie a 9 out of 10 and say that you should definitely go see this one in theaters whether you've seen the other Bourne movies or not. If you like action and thriller films, then this one will likely leave you satisfied. So did you guys see Jason Bourne yet? What did you think of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if not, let me know whether this is your kind of movie or not. And as always, if you like this video, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to my channel for much more content like this. Before I go, I want to mention to you guys that a good friend of mine is running an absolutely hilarious Instagram page by the name of Total Bro Life that you should all check out if you're looking for some good laughs. There's plenty of great memes on there that satirize the bro life that I think many of you have probably seen pretty frequently in your everyday lives. Yeah, definitely check them out though. You won't regret it, I promise. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.